going to jump ahead to the next item, which is the public hearing, 4373 Dennis Ryan Parkway Certificate of Consistency, Planning Board Case 2016-COC-03. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, Section 11, Mass General Laws, and Title 17 of the Quincy Municipal Code, and the provisions of the Quincy Center District Urban Revitalization and Development Plan, Urban Renewal Plan for the City of Quincy Center Urban Revitalization District dated May 7, 2007, as amended. The Quincy Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 14th at 7:43, 13 at the first floor Boards and Commissions Room, Quincy City Hall, 1305 Hancock Street, Quincy, Massachusetts, on the application of Quincy Chestnut Place LLC for a certificate of consistency as defined within the Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 10, and in accordance with Section 12.02, subsection 3, and Section 2 overall redevelopment strategy of the URDP, and pursuant to Section 8.3 Quincy Center District, Quincy Center Urban Revitalization, Urban Renewal uses. The applicant proposes the construction of a high-rise 15-story luxury residential tower with retail and commercial space on the ground floor. 124 residential units with a mix of studio, one-bedroom, and two-bedroom units. Parking provided within the dedicated spaces within the adjacent parking garage to be constructed. Approximately 7,850 square feet building footprint with plus or minus 117,000 total gross floor area. The subject property is located within the Urban Revitalization District of Quincy Center Zoning District, -15, and is more particularly identified, shown on the City of Quincy's Assessors Plan, number 1142 is Block 40, Lot B. Planning Board shall issue a certificate of consistency upon finding that the proposed project is consistent with goals, objectives, and requirements as set forth in the URDP. Mr. Hines.
Mr. Chairman and three members of the board, my name is Bob Hines, and I'm here on behalf of Chestnut Place LLC. As the chairman said, we are here seeking a certificate of consistency. We also know it's going to be a long process. Right now, as we speak, this matter is before the City Council for the LDR. So we know we're going forward with regard to that, and I know the board has to take this into consideration. We also know we have to go through the peer review process. But right now, present before you, I have the team of Chris Schulte from EBI Consulting, as well as Arthur Casey from Chestnut Place LLC. What we're proposing, as the chairman said, we're proposing to build a 124-unit apartment building there, right on, or luxury apartments, right across from the parking lot that exists now across from Quincy District Court. Also underneath, you're going to be there's going to be all commercial space right underneath there. We feel that this will ultimately be consistent with what the proposals are throughout Quincy Center. What I'm going to present to you before is right now is the Schulte right now that's going to present a PowerPoint presentation of what the building's going to look like, the architecture inside. And again, I think after the board sees this, and after we go through the whole process and work together, both the applicant and the board and the city, we're going to see this is going to be an luxurious apartment building that's going to bring a huge asset to the city of Quincy and what the proposals are down in Quincy Center. So if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Carlos Schulte with EBI Consulting, the civil engineer for the project. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. So I'll go through a little bit of the context of the site, where this is, how it relates on a high-level overview of some of the work the city's undertaking in the parking lot and surrounding area, and then talk a little bit about the building as well. So what we have here is the site's located in the northwest corner of the existing Hancock parking lot. So we have it right here in this location. The courthouse is located on the opposite side of the street. The Weston Chestnut building recently completed, not yet shown on the aerial map, is in this corner. And then we have the existing Force building and a number of retail buildings along Hancock Street in this location. So the frontage is on Dennis Ryan Parkway. There's an existing property in between Cottage Avenue and the parcel, and there's also additional property between the road and the site as well. So I also have a few slides here on loan from the city and their consultants that show some of the efforts that they've undertaken and the design that they've advanced on the parking lot. So what we have shown here is a rendering of the design and some of the concepts that have been presented. We have some of the existing buildings that are currently under construction, the Calvin development located right here. The West Chestnut project already completed, located right there. And what we have here in front of you today is this parcel right here, which is the R1 parcel, which is the proposed project that we have. 15-story high-rise building with 124 residential units and approximately 4,000 square feet of retail and commercial space on the ground floor. We also have the Quincy's proposed parking garage and additional future development shown here, which is still in the conceptual stage at this point. So what we have here is an aerial overview of the same area. Our site again is in the northwest corner, located right here. Proposed building with a small footprint, it's about 7,500 square feet of footprint on a roughly 0.7 acre site. And again, we have the proposed parking garage for reference located right here, and access to the parking lot off of Revere Road there, and improvements also for the city project contemplated on Cottage Avenue, Dennis Ryan Parkway, as well as the inside of the site as well. In addition to the site elements the city is evaluating as part of the redevelopment of the Hancock lot, there's also utility improvements on Cottage Avenue and Dennis Ryan Parkway. There's drainage in the parking lot that needs to be rerouted. There's a large sewer main that needs to be rerouted up Cottage Avenue down Dennis Ryan as well. This is a cross-section taken through the proposed parking garage shown in the proposed Chestnut Place building. Behind it is a 4-story garage that's currently proposed with one level of parking below grade, and the 15-story residential building located closer to Cottage Avenue on this side. You have Revere Road on the right-hand side there. So this is a graphical depiction of the proposed project. Again, it's about a 0.7 acre site. The actual building itself is going to be located on a parcel that's about 13,000 square feet. I'll get into that in a second, but this is generally what's proposed from a site standpoint. The access to the building is going to be provided off of Dennis Ryan Parkway. Right now that's a 2-way road. There'll be a new public access 1-way coming off of Dennis Ryan with short-term drop-off and parking for the residential uses of the retail space, and additional parking along the east side of the property as well that's also going to serve the commercial spaces on the ground level. So with this building, again, it's about a 7,800 square foot footprint, 117,000 square foot total building square footage combined between the retail and the commercial and the residential space. And that's all located on the ground floor with the residential on floors 2 through 15 above. The main access to the building for the commercial spaces will be located along the front, residential lobby at the front as well. All the loading activities will occur at the rear of the property with sufficient space to turn around for trash, deliveries, residential move-in. That'll all occur in the back, so there'll be limited impact to any sort of traffic in the surrounding area for that. In addition to the interior building elements and the site access, there's also going to be a dedicated amenity space for the resident use outside the building. Just basically a gathering space that they'd be able to entertain in the warmer climate months. So again, this is the parking program. There's 16 surface spaces available on the site. In addition to the 16 spaces, there's also an agreement with the city to provide 130 parking spaces in the lower level of the garage that's currently being developed by the city. So there's an agreement in place for that. And with that level of parking, that significantly exceeds the requirements in the zoning district, which is only half a space per unit. So we're providing 146 spaces when the actual requirement's only 65. So plenty of parking provided, which won't be an impact on the neighborhood from that standpoint. We have requested relief on a transportation study as the city is advancing the design in a comprehensive manner for the entire parking lot, and they're factoring all the potential development in the area, so this project will be part of that comprehensive traffic study that will be developed by the city. So again, the parking garage, just for reference, shown right now in the design phase. There'll be an above-ground portion that's 4 stories. There'll be 1 level of below-ground parking that'll have direct access to the building. Below grade, it'll come up with elevators to serve the residential uses above. In addition to the improvements on the site, one of the agreements, one of the conditions that the applicants agreed to provide is the landscaping of a future park that will be left over as a result of the city's work in the surrounding areas and the public improvements and the utility relocations. There will be a park that will be city-owned on the corner there. The applicant is committed to designing and constructing all the landscape improvements on that park, as well as maintaining them in the future as part of their overall maintenance plan for this site and that parcel as well. That design will be developed and it'll be presented to the board here as part of future meetings, and it will also be coordinated with the city as well. So here we have a site plan showing some of the easements that I briefly touched on before. The white area that we have in the center, that's the actual parcel that will be owned by the applicant, 13,526 square feet. The other colored areas around that parcel are going to be easement areas that will give certain rights to the public and the applicant to essentially pass through that area so that pedestrian connectivity is maintained and encouraged through those areas, as well as vehicular access to the parking lot areas and the loading in the rear. So from a utility and a grading and drainage standpoint, right now the site all slopes away from Dennis Ryan Parkway to the south to the interior of the site. All the stormwater right now is collected by catch basins in the parking lot and then routed directly through the series of drainage culverts to Town Brook that's on the east side of Revere Road there. As part of the proposed project, we're maintaining the grading patterns and not really deviating from the existing grades in the site. We'll be installing new stormwater catch basins, water quality units for treatment, providing additional recharge where there currently is none, and water quality and connecting back to that municipal system. Through the project's construction, there's going to be a significant new addition of landscape areas, about 6,000 square feet. So in addition to the improvements, there's also going to be a reduction in the paved areas on the site, which is a benefit on its own. Right now, the design for the stormwater, the utilities, is to connect to the existing infrastructure that's there right now. As the city's design is advanced for these off-site improvements as it relates to the stormwater and the sewer, we'll continue to work with them to make sure that any revisions that we need to make to the utility design to account for their proposed project are coordinated and designed accordingly. And ultimately, we would tie into the proposed infrastructure if the time works out that way. From a utility standpoint, again, the stormwater recharge chambers are shown here, the connection to the existing infrastructure and application. Sorry for the pictures being a little grainy. The sewer connections, there's an existing main on Dennis Ryan Parkway. There will be an increase in sewer flow as a result of the new construction here, but the existing infrastructure has capacity to be able to handle that. The same goes for the water connection to the existing infrastructure in the street, gas connections, and electric served at the rear of the site. The new transformer tying into the recent utility improvements construction as part of the city's work in that area. So here we have, which this was here we have a floor plan of the ground floor of the building. So what we have here are the commercial areas that are on both sides of the main entrance. This is Dennis Ryan Parkway on the bottom of the page, Cottage Avenue, separated by that landscape parcel on that side of the page. The retail frontage will be highly prominent to encourage and engage the surrounding areas and promote the pedestrian activities there, with a lot of windows and exposure to activate that space. It's about 4,200 square feet. The frontage on Cottage Avenue will be prominent, as well as the frontage along Dennis Ryan Parkway. There's interior recreation space and amenity space in the rear, and as previously mentioned, there's loading and move-in access at the rear of the building with a central elevator core. So here's a typical floor plan for floors 2 through 4. It's 124 residential units. It's a mix between 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and studio units. The actual breakdown as it relates to the unit distribution is 76 2-bedroom, 24 1-bedroom, 24 studio units. What you have highlighted here are the 2-bedroom units, which vary in size from about 880 square feet to about 1,000 square feet. We also have the 1-bedroom units here, which vary in size from about 700 square feet. And then we also have studio units, 2 on each floor, which are about 500 square feet. All the finishes on the building, interior and out, high-end luxury type finishes. Going to be hardwood cabinets, granite countertops, in-unit laundries. This is essentially serving all the tenants well. It's a typical floor plan of floors 5 through 15, very similar to the lower levels in that there's 2-bedroom units, 1 bedrooms, and studios on each floor. So what we have here as well are elevations. On the left, you have a front elevation. On the right, you have the rear elevation. The main residential entries in the center, and the 2 commercials on each side. So the exterior is a historical design concept with stone and brick on the ground levels on floors 1 through 4. It's going to be a very nice finish, mirroring the historic content of Quincy and some of the surrounding developments in the area. And then the higher floors, floors 5 through 15, are going to have a slender wall precast panel system with the faux limestone finish. Again, a very, very nice high-end finish. And then the roof will be a metal seam roof on a steel frame. And again, all steel construction on the building. Elevations from the left and the right, same consistent finishes on the floors as you move up. And as part of this process, we feel that this is consistent with the urban revitalization district guidelines, and it really advances the vision of what the city and everybody wants to see in this area. In that this is going to revitalize Quincy Center. It's going to activate the street level through the use of the retail on the ground level and the new park space that's going to be created on the corner that's going to encourage the pedestrian activity and create a space for them to gather. And we're happy to answer any questions or turn it over to the.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just so I can let the board know, this matter is before the City Council on Monday night for the LDA. I know we work consistently with the City Council applications here. We met with them. There was a hearing for the downtown committee on this past Monday, and it's being heard by the council this coming Monday. We hope to resolve the LDA issue at that time and work on an agreement. With regard to this applicant, I need the board to know this applicant has been committed to the city for many, many years. I know they want to make this a landmark. It's going to be a luxury residence. And I think, again, on behalf of the applicant, I'd ask the board to consider this as we progress forward. They're more than willing to have work with the city. I think they've shown that in the past. They're going to show that in the future. I think when this is all said and done, we go through the LDA, we go through the whole planning board process. I think the city's going to be very proud of the building they're going to have here. So at that point, that's the presentation. Now I know the planning department has to go forward with their due diligence and their work, and we're going to be before the city council on Monday.
Now, let me just see if there are any questions from the board members.
Thank you for this presentation. Will this be one of the tallest buildings in that area, 15 stories?
Yes, it would be.
Taller than the Stop and Shop headquarters building, or?
I believe the Stop and Shop is 10 stories.
Okay, so it would be
Yes.
5 stories taller than that. So this will be a visible building all around from the city of Quincy.
This is not only going to be an attractive building, but it's going to be an attraction. It's going to be something people are going to want to see.
And it looks like a beautiful building. One, this is to build on Member Barry's comment on the previous project. Seeing how it looks from some of the key gateway spaces, so along Hancock in both directions. What does it look like? I imagine it's beautiful, but it would be helpful just to get that sense.
We'll be able to provide such to the board as to come in from Hancock, coming from the other end, coming from Bergen Park.
I appreciate that. And you mentioned the park. Is that a public park that will
That will
be
be-
maintained?
Yeah, so that will be a public space, it'll be owned by the city, and it'll be full rights for the public to use. It will be constructed by the applicant, and they will maintain it as well. So it will be fully for the public use on Stein.
And then I imagine, you don't know, but the commercial, the retail that's envisioned are restaurants, traditional retail. I mean, what is the current thing?
They haven't gotten far along with any prospective tenants to be able to propose what that might be. The retail, commercial, general use is what we're looking at there. Something that matches what else is happening in that area.
Member Barry.
I think the member Camiso touched on a lot of things that I was curious about, but the public space is probably something that in this Quincy Center area is extremely important. And so could you just walk me through how that design will play out and how that design will play out and you know, who get to have a say in what that final park looks like? Because I'd be looking for functionality, and to Mr. Harney's point, if we're drawing people in, want to make sure that it's a space that people can use.
Sure.
Yeah,
Mr. Stevens?
yeah. I'm going to jump in here and just say a few words on this project because it is an urban renewal project, and part of the park area is city land. It's not being disposed of, so the city has a very strong role in the development of public space, not only for this building but for the entire lot. So, if it's appropriate, could I say a few words? The certificate of consistency before the board tonight is the fourth one in the Quincy Center Urban Renewal Plan. However, this is the first one that is a land disposition agreement, meaning, this is the first one where the city is actively working with this developer on unlocking new development sites on city-owned land, namely the Hancock lot. This proposal here is the result of this board endorsing the Fourth Amendment to the Urban Renewal Plan this past spring. In that plan, our strategy was to focus on unlocking the Hancock lot. We felt that that was the fastest way to getting new development in the downtown post the master developer agreement with Streetworks. That Fourth Amendment contemplates a new public parking garage on this site, and it also contemplates a number of infrastructure improvements to this site. Those infrastructure improvements, we sort of internally classify them as implementing public improvements, and that's city water, city sewer, stormwater drain. And part of the approval of the Fourth Amendment to the Urban Renewal Plan came with it a district improvement financing funding request to begin the design for the city to implement those. And I'm here to report that currently the city has under contract, working for the city, 3 engineering firms that are working, advancing the development goals on the Hancock lot. The first firm is Desmond Parking Associates. They're under contract to design a new public parking garage. There was a reference by the applicant that the garage has a sub-level in this presentation, and there's also that would connect to his building. There was also a reference that the city council is currently reviewing the land disposition agreement. Part of that agreement, the city is identifying this applicant as the developer of that garage, so that both the garage and this residential building will be built at the same time. I think that's pretty important, obviously, because parking is one of the areas of most concern to this board. The answer to that is the city is financing, designing and financing that garage that will serve this project, the general parking needs of the area businesses, as well as the potential future developments in this lot that are going to come before this board. In addition to having Desmond Parking Associates, the city also has the engineering firm of Woodard and Curran under contract to design a sewer relocation, as well as a new stormwater system. Right now, the Hancock lot simply goes into the drain that points right to the old drainage area that once was the town brook. Town brook has been relocated, but those flows do head into that direction. So a brand new stormwater system is being designed by Woodard and Curran for the city for the benefit of this site as well as future sites in the entire lot. We can't just plug this building in. We want to plug in, additional sites. And I think if you recall, there's a possibility of 4 new development sites in this Hancock lot. The third firm that the city has under contract is BSC Group. And BSC Group has been the city's urban renewal consultant for a number of years now. And BSC Group, although they're not under contract to do any engineering design, we do have them under contract to help us with what we call urban design. And to bring this back around to me interrupting you, Cole, BSC Group, I have my primary representative, Jeff Fasher, here, that I am going to ask to say a few words. But BSC Group helped develop the development program for Urban Renewal Amendment 4, where we're looking at all the areas where we can add high-quality public space and new public realm. Those aren't fully designed right. Those are in design development. Namely, it is going to be the parking garage. Once we figure out the exact siting, entrances, access, egress, we believe that's going to unlock a lot of the public areas that we then need to connect, the whole entire lot to. So that is in development. We believe through the Desmond parking effort that is now underway. Again, I've asked Jeff to accompany me here. I am looking for Jeff in the BSC Group to advise this board on this certificate of consistency as it moves forward. Jeff has the unique ability to understand the private development being proposed and also understanding where the public infrastructure is, as well as the garage. And if Jeff wants to step forward and just sort of reintroduce himself and say a few words, that would be great.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Again, Jeff Fasser with the BSC Group. Our main office is in Boston, Massachusetts. And we've been fortunate to work with the city for about 10 years now on the downtown urban renewal project. As Rob mentioned, most recently was Amendment 4, but we drafted the very first urban renewal plan. And I've kind of been involved off and on over the years. And most recently, much more involved when StreetWorks was no longer the master developer in crafting Amendment 4, but at the same time looking at the urban design elements, because StreetWorks put a lot of effort into that, and now that they're no longer on the scene, the city wants to make sure that the urban design, the public spaces, etc., still meet the standards of what we were all hoping to get from the StreetWorks project. I'm a certified planner, I'm a landscape architect. I've been with this project for years. When the design guidelines were first developed, I was part of that process to review those. And then most recently, again, we've been looking at the urban design elements on the Hancock lot. So as these individual projects come online, the city knows it's fitting into a much bigger picture. So I'm a resource, happy to help and review things and advise the board, answer any questions you have throughout this review process. But at the same time, the city is still using me to help plug these projects into this lot so that when everything is said and done, there is a grand or great or very accessible and pleasant public spaces in and around all these new developments, which includes the new park that'll be adjacent to this building, but also some interior public space, because people are flowing in and out of this garage. People will be parking and then being pedestrians getting into the downtown area, and we want to make sure that's a comfortable and safe and pleasant movement from the garage into the entire downtown area, not just this one development.
Can I answer your questions, Mary?
have a question. Thank you for that.
For me or for?
For you,
Yes.
actually. And is there a plan or a thought that as this lot is developed, we keep in mind that these public spaces are connected in a natural way so that you don't just stumble upon a park out of nowhere versus being on the Walter Hannon Parkway, having a right of access past this new garage, behind this new development to this new park? Is that part of the planning? Some intuitive, connection between these public spaces?
That was very much a part of it, yes. As we, could you flip back to the 3D model? There was a lot of discussion, as both Rob and Jim knows, as we were looking at this area to make sure that was exactly the case. And so, for example, again, this is the building we're talking about tonight. This park that's beside it, there was a lot of thought in putting that park there because of its visibility from Dennis Ryan, Cottage Street, west of Chestnut, in that area. So it's a park that's positioned so that as people enter into this area, they see that green space, they see that public space, so it becomes a draw to them to kind of enter into this area. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, as people park in the garage and filter into the downtown, they'll see that public space, they'll come out to Dennis Ryan, and then they see how they can get to other spaces. That's also the case into Hancock. There was a lot of discussion about making sure there's a strong connection between this internal space here out to Hancock. This is suggested of it happening at this corner of Cottage and Hancock, another connection here out to Hancock, a connection here out to what I still call the concourse. So a number of connections, views and vista corridors throughout, and then all the, well, not all, but many of these buildings would be opening on, let's say, their backside to an internal public space. So they're all internally connected, and that public space is then connected out in various ways to the city.
Any other questions, board members?
Just a quick question.
Yeah. Member
So, I'm sorry if I missed this, but so the existing building there is being raised on the corner of Cottage and Dennis Ryan, is that correct?
I got that. Yes. The city in Amendment 4 has identified, I believe there was 6 overall properties that
Okay.
were identified. This is 2 of them. Namely, right where the garage is sited. For those of you that don't know, that used to be Cottage Street that cut through from Cottage Ave to Revere Road. That street was taken, I believe, back in the 1950s by the city to create the Hancock parking lot. What they didn't do was remove the sewer line under that street. So when we're contemplating doing a full level of underground parking, those utilities need to get out of the way. There's also the thought of access. Now, Jeff mentioned the Concourse Road. That was a 30-year roadway that took quite a long time to put together. That was a major urban arterial to move cars east to west. One of the design elements for the garage is we do not want large queuing to get into this garage on Revere Road to block it up and disrupt traffic flow on that east-west movement. So the other idea, as far as relocating utilities, is also we envision the main entrance to that garage to be internal to the site, meaning folks would take the turn on to Cottage Ave from Dennis Ryan, Chestnut Street, and then pull into the garage that way, and use the more local roads for any excess queuing during future rush hours with that garage. So the city is undertaking the acquisition and demolition of those sites. What's been great about this applicant is he's stepped forward and has agreed to fund the construction and the maintenance of the public spaces around in this corner, not for the entire lot, which would include this area. So that is in the LDA, the Land Disposition Agreement. That's the agreement that is currently before the City Council. So I just want to inform this board, I think you already know, that process needs to follow through, or needs to reach its fulfillment with a vote down the road before this board can even vote on this project on the certificate of consistency. So we did feel it's important, since it's come forward, to get this project going on that track, because it's a little bit, like I said, this is the fourth certificate of consistency, but this is the first one with the land disposition agreement, where the city is actually in a position, to deliver on some of these new utility and site improvements, for the benefit of not only this project, but all of the development, being proposed for the Hancock Road.
Just one other quick question. I'm assuming Cottage, which is too narrow, and I'm assuming it's getting a facelift, right?
Cottage in that area, or on that section closest to Chestnut Street, we envision will be wider, yes,
Okay.
to offer two-way traffic on that end. We don't believe we'll take it down past the existing fours to Hancock Street, but we do envision, yeah. Yep.
I could address that.
Go right ahead.
Again, this is Cottage Street here, and the plan, again, for that larger urban design vision for this area is we are widening Cottage Street because it'll be two-way, and again, to facilitate movement in and out of the garage here. We're also, by making it wider, we're able to gain more sidewalk space over on the west of Chestnut side. That's pretty tight right now. They just work with what they have. And then we have some parallel parking here, and again, this green space here where those buildings will be coming down. So a wider street, wider sidewalks, and green space in that area.
I was going to ask about sidewalks, so thank you. Thank you.
Another question. And this question actually might be for the department. I mean, it strikes me, and this is great that, we're the development, and it seems to be a lot of residential projects in this area which are emerging. And I'm just curious, in terms of the vision for the downtown vision, how are we thinking about other uses, technology firms, other types of commercial firms in that area? And I don't know if there's a process or how we approach that, but I'm just curious if we've had some thought in terms of those types of things.
Absolutely, that's a very good question, Member Camizo. What's interesting, even 10 years ago, and Jeff could probably attest to this, the thought was residential on the Hancock lot, and a number of those reasons is due to access mainly off of Bergen Parkway and the highway. We also get into a little bit more of a neighborhood with Miller Style Road and Revere Road. Feeling residential is probably a more appropriate use, and that sort of has held true from the original vision plans, and then when Streetworks came along, and now the private market is coming forward with residential in this lot. We are requiring mixed use, so first floor retail, to have an active street area. The Ross Garage redevelopment area has always, we've always thought that is the more commercial zone, and I'm not sure if you've seen the news with the Quincy Hospital. We're really excited about the possibility of seeing some really high-quality commercial development over in the Ross Garage moving forward, and we think a lot of the interest for commercial has been in more in the Ross Garage side. That's just the way it's been.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you.
No other questions from the board? Okay. I'm going to open this up, since it is a public hearing, and ask anybody that wishes to speak, just to identify yourself. Come on up.
Yeah. My name is Susan McPherson. I live on South Bayfield Road. And just a couple of questions about the garage on this. So number one, this could not be built without the garage. Is that your statement?
Yes, the LDA agreement is contingent on the garage and the other public improvements being constructed in addition to the development of the parcel.
Okay, so what liability do we have as a city and as a taxpayer who couldn't possibly afford to live there if something goes out of sync in terms of the development of the garage?
There's a number of, there's a great deal of language in the land disposition agreement that details all those various steps. That's on my pay grade to be able to explain that.
But how on the hook is the city going to be if something happens with this garage?
Could you,
So,
something
if
happens to the
something happens, the
garage?
garage is not built, the apartment building is ready to occupy and.
Right, the project doesn't
Yeah.
move. For this project, the land disposition agreement before the city council identifies this development group as the designated developer for the garage, meaning they will construct it. There'll be one construction firm in charge of both sites because there'll be there's a big sub-level of the garage. We want a whole level of parking underneath. We couldn't coordinate, it'd be difficult to coordinate both at the same time if they were separate. So both the garage and this proposal are linked together through that
Are there any,
LDA.
in terms of, again, pretty much every project's gone overrun in terms of the expenses, or any kind of protections as far as absorbing some of that cost, because it's really gonna benefit this building more so than anybody else.
Well, the garage currently being contemplated is
Uh-huh.
650 to 700 spaces.
Okay,
There are arrangements for about 120 some odd spaces for this development, so there's a big benefit for general public parking as well.
so in other words, if something goes south, we are gonna absorb it as taxpayers. I'm just, if I was sharing any of that responsibility if something goes over, in terms of cost overruns.
GMP. Explain GMP.
Jim.
Guaranteed maximum price.
Go ahead.
All right.
Okay, so the concept behind, two things are happening with this foundation. The foundation's a blunt, okay, so you can have underground. So as Rob said, the only way that you could put these two projects up at the same time and not have a building without parking or parking without a way to pay for it. This developer will also lease for a long period of time the parking spaces, a number of parking spaces. Anybody else with the downtown UIDP, anybody that is going to build in this area has to contribute to the parking in that site. We also have to replace all the retail parking. We're building on a parking lot, so right now all the parking that is currently on the site, it will be used on that site, will be taken up, not all of it, but a portion of it will be taken up for the actual development on the site. So it's important to have vertical parking replace what was once a horizontal parking. Okay, so each project that comes online will have to participate in the parking plan. And we also have to have additional parking for retail throughout the rest of the center. So the plan, again, that's why you're listening to about 650 to 700 spaces. That's being determined as we look at the uses and the types of uses on that site. Good way to look at it. You have a very narrow building that's going up 15 stories. It provides a lot of housing, a lot of consumers, and parking within that narrow column, if you will. So when you say, will we be on the hook if something doesn't go wrong? There's going to be a guaranteed maximum price. Okay, so we know there'll be a surety before we go ahead with that parking garage, what it will cost. It isn't going to be a situation where, when you say it could go over, there'd be a large overrun on the site, okay? The intention and the manner in which this is going to be contracted is that there is a price. That's the price. That is all we're going to pay for that parking garage, okay? Again, GMP. Not different than what we did at Quincy High School. It was a guaranteed maximum price when we built Quincy High School. So that's one of your safeguards in that sense. But there will be other participation on that lot. As you noted, or as the proponents have mentioned, you have a lot that is right now, I think it's 13,521 feet?
26.
26.
That's good.
So that means that flower box that I want, okay. So what we're trying to do, again, is get a maximum value for that particular site, okay? That site being vertical allows other sites on the lot to be utilized for additional development. Those sites will either build parking under their building, or they will pay to use the parking inside that parking garage. Probably a little bit of both, okay? But that's the thought going forward. No one gets to say, okay, I'm going to build a building, and my people are going to park wherever they want to park. They have to park in the parking garage or provide parking on site themselves, which is sufficient for the building that they're building. Because again, what we're trying to do is make sure that there isn't a parking migration into the neighborhoods, where the entire neighborhoods are flooded with people that want to avoid paying for parking. Well, one way that you do that is, in fact, anybody that builds has to supply parking or pay into the parking building, the parking garage that we're building.
And that would continue if there's a change of ownership of the property?
Well, there's a number of other issues that would be discussed in the LDA, which is the land disposition agreement. This is where the city is selling that property to the proponent, okay? Let's assume they don't pay their bills. We can take that building and tax that. That's not what we have to see happen. But, and this builder isn't going to build this unless you can make this thing work as far as an operating cost process, okay? So you won't see it come out of the ground. If this thing doesn't work, it wouldn't occur. So what Rob was trying to say to you before is, you're not going to get halfway through that and they run out of money. Okay, that's not what is required within that process. So again, that's why each individual building, just as any other building that's built in the city, has its responsibilities. This is going to be private land that they're going to develop after we actually dispose the land to them on that site. So that, I hope that's helping you.
I'll be continuing to
Please.
be interested.
I hope everybody will be interested.
Any other, please, sir, stand up, just identify yourself.
Bill Sampson, 10 acres. In extension to her concerns, I have two questions for Mr. Batsey. One, on the current parking revenue that is derived net of expenses from Hancock Lot, is that money intended to continue to flow into the general fund to mitigate property tax, the tax bills in town? Or is that going to be anticipated to be flowing into paying for the new garage? Two, generally, I suspect that the new garage is anticipating some revenue flow from collateral development. What guarantees are there to protect local taxpayers from having direct and indirect costs coming upon them if project development surrounding it does not happen? Specifically, the case of Streetworks LDA, all of the infrastructure that they were talking about, not only was it price guaranteed, the city was not going to have to essentially buy that infrastructure from Streetworks until such time as their properties were producing sufficient tax revenue to cover all the costs and other things that were anticipated. I'm not hearing that level of comfort, and in particular because I think the garage is being built with the expectation of collateral development that is not necessarily locked in concrete at this point.
It's a good question. The parking revenue that will come from typical folks that will be coming down to park now, as it currently is, pays for a parking program on that site, pays for maintenance on that site, pays for what happens on that site, pays for the parking garage. That parking garage will no longer be paid for because there'll be a parking garage. So it's just going to be transferred, that parking revenue will go to pay down the parking revenue.
So the surplus revenue will be taken away from contributing to the general fund.
Surplus revenue is a number that changes on an annualized basis.
That I can appreciate, but currently surplus money does flow into the city's exchequer.
I wouldn't consider it surplus unless I did a, no, let me just finish, please. Okay? There are costs associated with running the parking garage.
I acknowledge that.
Okay. So surplus revenue above the cost of running the parking lot. I couldn't tell you what that is as I stand here before you, so I'm not going to guess, but I would say that the revenue that's coming off that parking garage is minimal. That parking lot is minimal to the general fund, de minimis.
But my question was, is it anticipated whatever
I answered the question.
the revenue that's coming off that lot will henceforth
Pay for a
applied
parking
toward building a new
garage.
garage. So whatever current revenue, less expenses that is left over from running that lot, that can go into the general fund, is going to be dedicated
And that's,
to funding.
I would say yes, but I would also say that there'll be a little bit more activity, a little bit more going on in the downtown.
Oh, I'm not gonna
And a whole lot more revenue coming